What is up, God and country listeners, people, citizens, whatever you want to call yourself? Daniel, Ethan, we are back.
We hope you're citizens.
Something. Hopefully.
God's kingdom.
We're
Sorry.
We are back with another episode of the God and Country podcast with you guys. We have a couple other topics planned. We had some technical difficulties with one of those topics, and we're going to go back
Ethan
to that.
difficulties. Yeah, that was my fault. Sorry,
We're going to go back to those topics probably the next couple episodes. But with everything going on in the country right now, I reached out to Ethan, was like, "Hey,
we should
talk about police. Or like policing." The whole issue about that. And, obviously, if you're not paying attention, if you're not aware of what's going on, there's some crazy riots and protests and everything happening all over the country. We'll maybe get into some of that as part of this episode. But we wanted to talk about, policing. What is it? What does the Bible say? How do we, as believers, of course, as always, react, or what should we do about it? This particular topic. This one, I think, is kind of a... what's the word I'm thinking of? It can be a broad topic, I guess.
but
because there's
there's a lot of police.
There's a lot of police, yeah. And then also it's like, I know I've personally had bad interactions with police.
Me too.
Had a wrongful arrest like right when I was 18. I can probably maybe get into that. I've got another situation.
Criminal.
With my, actually, no. I'll explain it later. And then I've got another personal situation in my family where, somebody in my family is dealing with a really tough situation involving a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
But then I know some guys that are cops that are great people.
Oh, yeah.
They're great officers.
Oh, yeah.
They're great cops.
Been to their house.
Yeah.
Let my kid play with their kid.
Then they actually care about like protecting and serving like they're supposed to. They don't care about.
I like the canine cops. I don't think I'd like to be chased by them, but
no, yeah,
I think those are my favorite cops.
Probably because they get a dog.
They get a dog, and they're usually out of the way because they don't want the dog to attack people.
Yeah.
So they just kind of stand in the corner looking all mean.
Unless they need that dog to find somebody.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like if I'm at a place and there's a bunch of cops, I would rather be looked at by the canine cop because I don't have anything on me. Whereas like the other cops, they don't have a sense of smell for the drugs that I don't have, so they're gonna think that maybe he has drugs on him. But I digress.
Yeah. So to kind of get into it. Question number one, what is police? Of course, as always, I looked up the definition. Then first definition is the civil force of a national or local government responsible for the prevention and detection of crime and the maintenance of public order. And that is the noun definition. And then also there's the verb definition of to police. Like you have to police something, and that's and it's of a police force have the duty of maintaining law and order in or for an area or event. So obviously like are we in League City or Webster right now?
This is Webster, yeah.
Okay, we're in Webster, Texas. So the Webster police force police the area of Webster, Texas.
Right.
And then that's kind of where that definition is talking about. And so it's important, I think, to know that the police, your local police, even national, I mean, like, technically the FBI, I guess, would be considered a national police force.
National police force.
It's a civil force that's a part of the national or local government. So, I mean, it's civilians that take part and join the, they have, like, volunteer
it's connected. It's connected to the executive branch.
Yeah.
Of the government, whether that's local, state, or federal. People enact laws. They're the people that go through and make sure that is enforced. People either obey or don't not obey, however the law needs them to go ahead and do that. But whereas the Army is the arm of the executive branch of the president in the federal level, the police are the arm, the armed force for the executive branch of the local government, which in most places would be the mayor. In some places that have less people, it's probably just stops at the sheriff's department, right? And then they go to the county council or the city council or the county clerk's office, or it gets a little,
because I know like Louisiana with like the way they have parishes and stuff.
Yeah, it gets a little weird in some places, but for the most part, at least in bigger cities, mayor and the cops are under the mayor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so like I mentioned, with all this stuff going on with the recent George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, and the following riots and protests that kind of came after that. I wanted to talk about this because I think it's a very relevant topic. It gets us off of constantly bringing up coronavirus every time we get together. Which, I mean, we kind of can't
Finally,
talk
we're
about
not talking about Corona.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
It's, I mean, I'm so glad that that's just like all of a sudden
it's over now.
Guess. But so I don't know if you've seen the video of this incident in Minneapolis, but basically what happened is there was a traffic stop. An officer pulled him out of the car. From the videos that I have seen, I haven't seen any specific incident where George Floyd was resisting arrest.
Right, me neither.
Yeah,
I've seen a few different angles.
Yeah, I saw a clip from when he was pulled out of the car and the cop kind of walked him over to the sidewalk, and you could see he was saying something to the officer, but he wasn't fighting back. He wasn't doing any of that. And then the only other clip I've seen is the popular one where the cop is, kneeling on his neck for 8.5 minutes and stuff. And so obviously it's a terrible incident. It's unfortunate that things like this would have to happen. Obviously, and then that opens the door for people that want to politically take advantage of instances like this, to take advantage of instances like this. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot across the country with the protests, is that there's a lot of people. I know for sure the Minneapolis police chief, after the first 2 days of riots, made an announcement that 90% of the people that have been arrested aren't from
Minneapolis,
aren't even from Minnesota.
Not, wow.
And if you don't know this, it's a federal crime to cross state lines and incite violence.
Yes.
So
that is true.
So, and there's a lot going on.
So if you're thinking about doing it, go ahead and riot in your own Texas. In your own state. I'm sorry. Stay in your state and riot. Yeah. If you, please.
And so, and there's instances the protests going on all over the place. Dallas, DC, Portland. Literally all over the country.
They were trying to do one here at the mall, about 2 miles that way.
Really, they did one in Galveston on the beach for a little while.
Also, maybe we should clarify the one that I'm referring to at Baybrook at the mall here. They were calling it a riot before it was even a rally. I don't know about the one on the beach. I think I saw the one on the beach, and it was supposed to be like a protest at first.
It was civil. It was civil. It was definitely civil, which I'm 100% for.
Right. And I think that the one in Houston too, I know some people personally who went, and they said it was 50-50. You had people that were inside, almost 50-50.
Yeah.
Every other person you saw was just obeying the law, holding their signs, yelling what they wanted to, filming a little bit, and that was it. And then every other person was trying to swing at people. Hey man, let's break this door.
Well, and that's I think, to get into it a little bit with this stuff that's going on right now. There's evidence that there's evidence that people in these riots that are causing a lot of these problems are Antifa members.
Yeah.
Antifa, I don't know if you know this, is funded by George Soros, and they're basically like a paramilitary wing of the globalists that want to destroy America.
Yeah.
So, and there's a ton of videos now I'm seeing too where a bunch of people are walking. There's videos where literally just piles of bricks are just showing up in cities.
Yeah, I've seen those,
I just saw a picture where somebody put 3 or 4 piles of probably 100 bricks each under an overpass in Plano, Texas. And so people were sharing it. It was be safe in Plano tonight, because it's all of a sudden there's bricks there. But I've seen video of it in Dallas, in New York, Minneapolis. There's just bricks showing up, and what that is, what I believe that is Antifa is bringing in a bunch of people from all over the country to these different cities, and they organized this and planned these protests, and they were just looking for the event to start it off, to light it off.
Yeah.
And so they're handing out bricks to different protesters. I saw one where this lady, African American lady, confronted a car that was handing bricks out to people, and she grabbed one of the bricks and opened their door and threw it back in there. I was like, don't you, because she's because that's the problem is that when that starts to happen, the media is going to run with it.
Yep.
And
the cops could respond to it.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're getting people there's people out there that are protesting, that want justice. They're trying to be peaceful, and then there's a ton of people that are coming in and trying to cause chaos and riots and anarchy from that. And there's I think the other night there were 50 Secret Service agents that got injured in DC.
Yeah.
There's been a federal I can't remember the exact title, but in
he was a federal he was just a federal police officer.
Yeah,
he
in Oakland, and he got killed, and he was an African American.
Yeah, he was a person of color. Yeah.
You know, so to me, that's like showing. That's like, okay. I mean, obviously, there's people that are doing this the right way that want to do this for a reason, that have a reason to do this, and then there's people that obviously do not care about actual justice in the case, and then they're just trying to use this to push a political agenda and destroy the country. Yeah,
and I saw a video of they caught one of the looters that they had him handcuffed, and they were the reporter was asking him, "Hey, I saw you in this store. Can you tell me why you're out here doing this since you're not going anywhere? Go ahead and answer my questions." And the guy, he had his mask off, it like a bandana, he had it off, and he said, "Man, it's just wrong what happened out there, but I'll be honest, I'm here for me, man.
Yeah, I'm here for the money.
I'm here for the money. I can get some stuff and sell it, and that's money in my pocket, So I mean, I appreciate the honesty, thank you.
And I wouldn't, and I actually, because I've seen the video that you're talking about, I wouldn't even think that guy is one of the one that's starting it.
Oh, absolutely. He's probably just going in and be like, "Yo,
he's like,
Target's
it's happening. Why not? Yeah.
Target's open."
And while you brought it up, so they can blame you for talking.
No,
about
I didn't bring it up.
No,
I take
Target.
it back. I take it back.
So I don't know if you know this as well. So Antifa is funded by George Soros.
Yeah,
he's got huge money in that. I don't know if you know this as well, but Soros also owns AutoZone Incorporated, and he has a huge share of Target.
Yeah, I knew that one.
If you're paying attention, a lot of the stores that are being broken into are Targets
and AutoZones. Yep. I think the first fire that was set in Minneapolis was an AutoZone.
It was an AutoZone, and it was from things that I've seen, it looks like it could have been a cop that started that.
Yeah, completely dressed in
all black, had a mask on, had an umbrella.
You couldn't see any of his skin, except for his eyes when he turned around and tell somebody to lay off.
Yeah, so in this particular cop or possible person, cop, the person that identified him was his ex-wife. So I think if anybody knows what his eyes look like, it's probably his ex-wife. But anyways,
so George Floyd, terrible.
Yeah, terrible incident. I think protesting for justice is 100% understandable. At this point, I know that all 4 of the cops that were involved in the incident have been fired.
Yep.
The main cop, who was the one that was kneeling on him, has been fired, and the state has brought 3rd-degree murder charges against him. Mm-hmm. I believe, personally, part of the reason they're only bringing 3rd degree at this point is because they don't want to overcharge and then let him off, because they can't prove
the lawyer, the defense will be like, "Yo, that's too much."
Yeah, they can't prove the severity of like a 1st-degree murder. So they're bringing 3rd-degree murder against him, so they can for sure handle that, and then possibly bump the charges up if the evidence allows. And so so there's terrible incidents, and like I mentioned before, there's bad cops and there's good cops.
Right.
There's guys that become cops, and unfortunately I think it happens quite a bit that there's guys that become cops because it's
for the same reason some guys join the military.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's guys that
and girls.
Yeah, they're 100%. There's people that join
and gender
fluid
force, whatever that is.
And guys and girls. So it's just guys and girls. Let's just say that
people. They're all people.
Yeah, so there's people that join the police force because they're power hungry and they want to be able to go out and enforce laws or they
want to be in charge,
jerks to people.
They want to flex.
And then on the other side, there's people that join the police force because they actually want to do good. They actually want to help their community.
Yeah, they definitely believe in like a moral standard and holding that up.
Yeah, and being equally applying the law. I think like and to kind of get into, I guess now my personal instance where it happened directly to me.
I want him to tell this story, but I want to point out, as much as we start off with talking about George Floyd and the the terrible thing that occurred, there's a lot of components to what happened and the response and what's going to happen as a response to the response. So right now as the God and Country podcast, we're just tackling right now policing, local authority, police brutality and stuff. Will we get into systemic racism? Probably. Will we start talking about, the right to protest? I plan on talking about that.
Yeah.
But not right now. Not this episode.
Yeah,
this episode, we're just tackling
policing. Yeah. And it's being brought up because I mean, it happened a week ago. It's relevant to kind of what's going on in the country right now, and it's an example of some of the things that we do want to talk about in regards to policing.
Right. But I want to point that difference out because there are a lot of Christians who have a lot of sway on social media or just anywhere that are talking about very emotional subjects where that's not really what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah,
at least me and Daniel. It's not that the emotions aren't valid. It's not that people's feelings and even fears aren't justified.
Yeah.
But what we're tackling right now, and what we want the listeners to think about right now, just during this episode and after, is specifically the subject of policing, police forces, police brutality and stuff, and how that affects and how we should live our lives as believers and things like that. So please, yes, tell the story. I want to hear that story.
So I was 18. It was a little less than, or about a year after I graduated high school. And I was skating with some of my friends in Texas City.
He was a skater boy.
Grew up doing it my whole life, pretty much. What's crazy is this is the only like one terrible instance I ever had with a cop. Skateboarding my entire life, never had a cop like really get like this with me. But so basically, what happens? I'm skating, and in Texas City, there's this area of baseball parks with roads in between, and nobody ever drives down those roads because it's in between the baseball parks, and really you only go on those roads if you're going to the baseball.
If you're going to the game,
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's like really late winter, so it's still cold. I mean, I was wearing like 2 jackets and like a ton of clothes because it was cold.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. So
in Texas.
Yeah. And I get cold really easily. So I was probably wearing more than most people needed to.
Yeah.
But so anyways, we were skating in the street and we had a little box, just kind of grinding on it and doing some tricks on it and stuff. And I'm standing in the street getting ready to go. I was just catching my breath, and my friends point out to me that there's a car behind me that had been sitting there for like maybe a minute or something. And I was like, I moved out of the way and I was like, oh, my bad. I didn't see you there. Blah, blah, blah. And well, this cop, I didn't know it at the time, but this guy drives by and he's like screaming at me in his car. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he's like driving off. And I was like, I said some choice words I won't say here because I don't want to be there. But I said, I was like, and I said it kind of loud where he could hear me. I was like, oh, well, you didn't have to be such an and that's what I said. And so he stops and then turns around and rolls down his window and is like, just starts screaming, do you know who I am, blah, 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 I could do this, I could do that, blah, blah, blah. Just screaming at me. And I was like, oh, okay, dude. I was like, whatever, my bad.
I'm not wrong though.
Yeah, I was like, I was like,
your mom.
I was like, okay, my bad. I was like, you freaked out on me because I didn't see you behind me because I was facing the same way you were driving. Anyways, and so he goes back down the opposite side of the street and just parks in one of the parking spots for the baseball fields and just sitting there. And just
Creepy.
sitting there. And all my friends are kind of like freaking out. I was like, what is he going to do?
Is he going to yell at me again?
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything, so we're still skating. And then he's probably sitting there for maybe 15, 20 minutes, I think. And then this road that we're on is in between. It connects 2 other streets that people, go down because whatever. And so 2 cop cars on each side.
Ooh.
Bro.
You in trouble now.
Dude,
you in trouble now.
Flying down the street.
Yeah.
Flying down the street. And so then they pull on our street and they speed down the street, speed up to us. They get out of the car. Get out of the car. Freaking out.
Wow.
Freaking out. These cops are freaking out. And I'm like, what did I do? And unfortunately for me, this is like right kind of when I was starting to learn like rights and like libertarianism and stuff like that. So I wasn't smart enough to be like, whoa, okay, what's going on here, officers, and pull my phone out and record them or whatever. But Did
they even have flip phones back then?
Yeah, it was 2011.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not that old.
He's older than me, so
I'm not that old. But so they grab me and throw me on the car and throw me in cuffs and throw me in the back of the car, and they're all tossing me around. They get one of my other friends and throw him in the back of the car, and he's freaking out. He's like,
wild.
He's like, oh, dude, I'm going to get in trouble. I was like, Thomas, I told him, I was like, look, Thomas, you didn't do anything. You're not going to get in trouble. They're going to let you out of the car. I was like, if anything, I'm going to be the one that goes to jail for some reason. I don't know.
Mouthing off.
Still don't know what's going on. And so a couple minutes after I tell them that, they pull my buddy out of the car, and I'm still sitting in the back, like kind of like, whoa, okay, what's going on? And I look at the laptop, the cop's laptop in the car, and it says terroristic charges on it, or terroristic threats. And so
nice.
So I get arrested.
You really got him, Daniel.
Dude, I get arrested.
You really got him.
I go sit in jail for about 6.5 hours. My dad can finally bail me out. When he bails me out, he's like, they were telling me that you were saying this and saying that. He was like, all kinds of stuff and blah blah. And it was like they were making it super difficult to get you out of jail because this guy claimed you made these terroristic threats. And well, you know,
Did you ever figure out what he told him you said?
No, I have no idea what he told him. But I, you know, got a lawyer, fought the charge, and they dropped that, and it was literally an impeding traffic charge. And like, and again, if I knew my rights at the time, I would have pursued a wrongful arrest lawsuit.
Of course,
because
I
should have got a $200 ticket, and instead I got thrown around by cops and put in jail for 6.5 hours. And luckily, the guys I was in the jail cell with were super cool. And
but it could have been the other way.
It could have definitely not come to that
for nothing.
And I also found out eventually that the guy that got me arrested, I'm going to just call him out. His name is Kenneth Brown, and he worked for the Texas City Police Department, and he was off duty that day, and he's the type of cop that thinks he can just flaunt his power. I found out,
right?
And I actually found out that he's the same guy that got my uncle arrested a couple years before that, over, again, some bogus charge that, you know, my uncle actually ended up going on ABC 13 and like telling his story and stuff, all kinds of stuff. But so I got arrested for all this. I got terroristic threats. Almost had that like as a part of my record because that's what the guy, you know, I called
when you're a terrorist, you know.
And so like I said, to this day I have no idea what happened, what he said to these cops, what I said. And like as the cops are driving me to the police station, they're talking to me all friendly and, you know, blah, blah, and I'm like,
yo, this terrorist is kind of cool.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. You know, I was like, I apologize to him for if I said something that upset him and everything. And so they still, you know, of course they had to take me in and book me and stuff, but
wild.
Yeah, I was like 18 years old, and some guy tried to put a terrorist threats charge on me because I called him an a-hole.
Hey,
but you know, that's a personal.
It scares
instance.
people, you know.
It's a personal instance I have with. I don't want to say brutality because
they were just. I mean,
it was abuse of power though.
Absolutely,
a big abuse of power because this guy wasn't even on duty. And
absolutely,
he got me arrested for nothing. So
that's wild, man. That's wild.
So I had a good experience with abuse of power. The other situation I'm not going to get into because it's a family member thing and it's an ongoing case and stuff. But,
it's kind of harder to hear too.
Yeah, it's a pretty crappy situation.
Yeah.
But you know, that's my personal example.
Personal example.
I'm sure I could probably think of some other stories that I could tell of friends that I have and stuff, but I can't think of them right now.
Well, I mean, you know, with this whole, I'm not trying to talk about Rona because we said we weren't going to talk about it, but hey, you know, it's
relevant.
Yeah. It's like not talking about Trump. We're going to talk about Trump, you know, but, you know, with the whole, like everything shutting down and here in the state of Texas, at least in Houston, Harris County, there was a judge that like wanted to shut everything down. You couldn't go outside without a mask and everybody's like all mad and stuff, freaking out. And I was having this conversation with some family, like, cause they were like, man, we should arm ourselves and go and protest, have a peaceful protest. But like, if they want to make us do something, like, come at me, bro. And I told him, I was like, man, who do you think is going to come at you? A trained police officer who has kids at home and a wife and a mortgage, just like you, you know, you're not going to get the county clerk, you know, whoever you're mad at, you're not going to get him.
I think I know which judge you were talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, in any, you know, locale here in the United States, you're not going to get them. You're going to get cops. You're going to get cops first, and sheriff's officers, deputies, and FBI agents. I mean, you're just going to get regular blue collar working dudes.
Joes.
Yeah, and I don't think that as believers. I think that as believers, our Americanness, you know, you don't say that to me, you know, that really rises up, and it's just ungodly in some situations.
Yeah.
In some situations, it's not like, you know, knowing your rights and being like, I'm going to sue you for wrongful arrest.
Yeah.
That's good because that's something that God's blessed us with. We live in a country where the police can't just do that and get away with it. And if you had, you know, known better,
I would have probably got a nice little chunk of change from the city of Texas
but I mean,
City,
and that would have been considered a blessing. But as far as, you know, violently resisting power, I mean, I don't know. It's extremely situational.
And here's what I'll say about that, because a lot of the stuff I'm seeing right now with the George Floyd protest, people are trying to compare it to like the protests that were happening in Michigan when they were trying to get the state to reopen. And you know, the people that were that came to the Capitol armed, and there were some people that kind of pushed around on some cops and stuff like. So everybody's trying to say like, oh look, you know, the white people with their guns, although there were some minorities and color, you know, people of color in those protests as well. They're pointing out some of the people, again, a small percentage of the people that were trying to cause problems which I would not even doubt if some Antifa people infiltrated that, and tried to start problems.
People that think like that were probably too scared to go outside because of Rona.
Yeah. But then they're trying to compare these protests that were mostly peaceful. I mean, obviously these people had arms and they were exercising their Second Amendment versus these protests where people are burning down stores, they're burning down police precincts,
beating innocent bystanders,
beating innocent people,
mob beatings, with 2x4s on a 4-foot woman.
Like older woman too.
Yeah.
I think if I'm
if we're talking about the same one, she was just standing outside telling them to leave, and they kind of counted around her. One came up behind her, knocked it down. Dude picked up a 2x4.
Yeah, and started beating her husband too.
Oh, I didn't see the husband. The video cut out before I saw that.
Yeah, there's one.
Bro,
maybe that's not the same one. Then
insane. I mean, even in Dallas, you see the one in Dallas where that dude got stomped. I mean, he looks dead.
Yeah. There's in the Rodney King riots, and there's I saw a huge post from Truckers of America that are basically saying like we're no longer going to stop for y'all because this guy, I can't remember his name right now, and I could feel bad about it, but this trucker that got killed during the Rodney King riots, he stopped for protesters so he didn't run them over, and then they pulled him out and beat him to death.
Yep.
So there's a post.
With a brick.
Yeah, there's a post going around social media now where truckers are like, we won't stop for you. We're going to run you over.
We're going to run you over. Yeah.
And we're going to use all 1,800
Yeah, we're going to use our trucks and our rigs.
Yeah. And that, I mean,
we got guns inside of it too. Like, we're going to do what we got to do.
That's what they got to do. Like, honestly, because these people are impeding.
Right. But back to the police part.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the policing things go, Trump talks about, has mentioned, using the National Guard for certain things. If we can just zoom out for a little while and not talk about riots particularly. I want to talk about riots. If we can zoom out and not talk about racism, systemic racism, I want to talk about that. But right now, just policing, Daniel, as believers, do we like police or do we not like police?
That's, I think, again, where it's a.
Well, I shouldn't say police. I should say the concept of policing. We love our neighbors, right? We love people.
Yeah,
but
I think the concept of policing is helpful to a certain extent, and thank you for bringing that up because that brings up another point I wanted to make. If you notice, a lot of these situations where police are abusing power, they're happening in states or in cities where the government has been given a ton of power, and then these police walk around
with all that power.
Because they're the ones that enforce it. So, I mean, Minneapolis and Minnesota, liberal city, liberal state. New York City, New York State, liberal city, liberal state.
Liberal.
So it happened. Rodney King happened in California.
Was that L.A.? That was L.A.
Yeah.
Rodney King.
Yep. And that happened in California. It happened in California, like I think about 10 years, or maybe not long after it flipped Democrat. It flipped blue, but at the time, I'm pretty sure it was a blue state. That so these, I think again, to go back to policing, the concept of policing is helpful when they're enforcing helpful laws. I don't think that cops need to be sitting on the highway with speed traps to catch people.
No.
I think that does help somewhat with safety, but that also doesn't, because if people are driving, they're going to see if they see the cop, they're going to slam on their brakes.
Yep. Even when they're going the speed limit.
Down.
I do that.
Yeah.
I think I'm speeding because I'm so used to speeding, and then I'm actually going the speed limit.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm speeding.
Yeah, exactly. So there's certain things. I don't think it can be black and white. Like, yes, we like policing. No, we don't, because there's things about policing I respect and I am for.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, and then there's things about policing that I do not respect, that I do not appreciate,
and you're not.
And I'm not for.
Yeah. No, I get it. I think that if we could self-police, which hasn't never been a thing successfully for a long period of time, because people get greedy, they get power hungry. That's just the nature of man.
Yeah.
But if that's what we could do, that would be so much better, because then we could take care of ourselves. If someone's out of line, the people that are right there, we police them. We round them up and stuff.
And that's part of the idea of the Second Amendment as well. The Second Amendment is for your self-defense, and yes, it applies greatly to government and tyrannical government as well. But you can't defend yourself from government if you can't defend yourself from somebody else that's trying to harm you and take things from you. Right.
What are you going to do against the government when they're rolling in the tank? You can't even fight somebody off in a liquor store.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of my point as well about the Michigan protesters versus what's going on now. Is that
it's not really the same thing,
because there were hundreds of armed people. And yes, I mean, you could say the government has more firepower, but a lot of the times to get like your CHL and to get your handgun license, you actually have to go through more training than a police officer.
Which is wild.
Continue the class, you have to continue your education and stuff. So, which I think is crazy, and I think that's something I want to get into later. Is what kind of needs to be done to help with the policing issue. Is
getting into that, if policing was privatized, I don't mean all policing, I don't mean constable, I don't mean sheriff, I don't mean even the FBI, because they should just be abolished. but if just the regular police department, the city police, if that job was privatized, even traffic officers, if they were just privatized, then we would actually be able to, the people would have more control and hold them way more accountable, because they would be private citizens who were doing these heinous things like killing people on camera while looking dead at the camera. Like,
that's kind of the point of the profit motive is and obviously there's people that will use the profit motive to be greedy, but one of the main underlying points of the profit motive is that to make profit, you have to
please the customer.
Yeah, you have to please the customer. So if there's a privatized cops that are running around killing people willy-nilly for race or for any other issue just because they're power hungry, that private company is not going to stay afloat for long,
right?
Unless they change,
and the people aren't going to get jobs the next time.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to be kicked out of the industry. Yeah. Whereas like police officers now, they get reprimanded, transferred to a different department.
Yeah, like this guy.
Not the guy that killed George Floyd.
He has a history of doing this.
Oh,
and actually, liberals. I'll call you. Well, I won't call you out with this, but listen to this right here. One of your former Democratic presidential nominees, Amy Klobuchar, was the state attorney general for Minnesota, or was the district attorney general for Minneapolis, somewhere. One of those. She was one of the lead attorneys in cases where this guy.
Specifically?
This guy specifically, this guy that killed the cop that killed George Floyd. I keep wanting to say his name backwards for some reason, but George Floyd. He has other instances in which he had been abusive on the job. And Amy Klobuchar, and I know for sure at least one of those instances, declined pressing charges on this guy.
Yeah.
And she's supposedly on the short list for Biden's VP pick. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's
he probably forgot. So.
Yeah, he
don't remember.
He didn't make that list. Remember. He doesn't know what's going on.
No. Poor guy.
He doesn't even know he's running for president sometimes. So.
No, he doesn't. That poor guy.
Yeah.
But I guess what I wanted to bring up to you is, as a believer, no matter your skin color, because as believers that doesn't matter. We can get into that a different episode.
Yeah.
But when it comes to dealing with the police, you should always be respectful. But here's the thing about respect that my dad taught me, and I've learned, over time, and even in the Bible, there's a degree of fear or caution that comes with respect. The reason we respect tigers and lions is because they can kill us. Not even with their mouths. They can just swipe us and we're dead, like a bear, Yeah. Well, it's the same thing when God says the fear of the Lord. He's talking about respect, reverence. Like, yo, you're big, God. Like, I'm not trying to cross you. I'm scared to cross you.
Whoa, dog.
Yeah. Whoa. Oh, you big up there. Okay. My bad. I didn't mean it, man. Like, my bad, But it's like that. So when you go up against a police officer, definitely we want you to know your rights. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, God and country, we're pretty libertarian. We're pretty center, but always, be respectful and stuff. And then, you got to trust the Lord's going to take care of you. I saw a video, and I don't have my phone on me right now, but I saw a video of this former NFL player who was in Atlanta, and he got arrested, and he wasn't resisting arrest. I mean, somebody was filming it from the jump, and he still got arrested, was put in jail, they said that he was a gang member and making threats on the cops while they were just walking by and stuff. But I mean, they were brutalizing him. They were throwing him on the ground, pushing his face on the ground, sitting on his face with their knees. I mean, it was like 4 dudes, and he wasn't even resisting. And I'm not going to say what the color of his skin was, but you can make your own assumptions about that, do your own research, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Police brutality is a problem, and that's something that we can actually address. But I will tell you this, if you are following God's will for your life and doing things that are righteous, you're not going to get crossed by the cops like that.
Yeah.
For pretty much any reason. Mm-hmm. I could see maybe in some countries, in some situations, maybe even the future here in the States, where the police has to come against believers, at which point, we need to lay down and just, take that L for Jesus, which would be a W, right? To die is gain. But, just the normal everyday life, if you're living righteously, you're probably not going to get caught like that. And even if you are, I know some people just wrong place, wrong time. That's why you have the Holy Spirit. Okay, so you need to listen to God inside you, always be respectful to the police officers and all that stuff. And then officers, good ones, go out there with the Spirit of God, with your angels, just really kind of do what, be the light and stuff. But that being said, if I could get rid of city police force, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would privatize it.
I would be okay with that. Yeah,
I would privatize it for sure.
I think personally,
shrink it.
I mean, because I think that's going to be a hard sell for most people.
Well, yeah, I know it's not going to happen.
But I think
I know it's not going to happen at all.
There
But
needs to be instances where, like, I think police officers need to go through mental evaluations every year. Or,
I would say 6 months.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they need to go through regular mental evaluations. They should go through regular firearms training courses. I think there needs to be, I like you mentioned, most of the time nowadays when cops abuse their power or get caught doing something that they're not supposed to, they'll get reprimanded and suspended and then probably transferred to another precinct. I think once there's instances obviously where cops are going to get suspended in which it's not warranted, and then they do an investigation and shows, okay, it was fine, and put them back on the force, whatever. But
put them back on the street. In
the instance where, like, someone is murdered and under a cop's knee, yeah, and I mean, this guy got fired like pretty quickly, but if there's a suspension that comes in. And then the guy, there's an investigation shows that, okay, yeah, this guy like murdered him in cold blood for no reason. Fire him. Don't let him become a cop again.
Yeah,
there just needs to be.
Yeah, people need to be marked a certain way and held responsible. And I put that on the people. We need to, as believers, we need to forgive and treat people in love and give second chances and stuff. But that doesn't mean you put a gun in their hands or a badge on them. Yeah.
And don't give them.
I would even, some people 20 years later, they got a family, they kind of learned the mistakes. Go ahead and let them have a gun. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. But don't put a badge on them.
Yeah. Let them.
Just let them do their thing.
Let
them go be go work in the mortgage industry or something.
But and. It's just I think there's things that have to be done. I mean, obviously at this point, like I don't think race played a factor in the George Floyd death. I think it was more of a cop that was just. I
don't know, man. The way he looked at that camera really bothered me. And I'm not saying that it was racist. I'm saying that it was kind of psycho.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. That's a guy that pursued power. And that's what I think it is. It's more an abuse of his power as an officer than it was of like a racial motivation. Because actually, I don't know if you know this, but the Asian cop that was standing there in the video,
yeah,
his wife, the Asian cop's wife, is married to the guy who killed George Floyd. And there's other things that we can get into, but it's a deep rabbit hole we could get into right now. But we're not going to do that. So, yeah, I think just personally, like, I would be for privatizing and making like a for-profit police industry in which police forces are required to do well at their job.
Yeah, I mean, where the police force is like a restaurant, if you don't like the service because they're here to serve and protect. I would make it small. I mean, I would make it by like 2 or 3 neighborhoods, and the police officers, they're armed or whatever, and they're trained, but they're paid by the people that live there directly. They work with the people that they police, and the people that are policed by them work with them. They're civil servants, so they need to start serving civilly. Instead of this huge, hundreds of miles, big cities and counties even, and you're from another town. You just drive, you commute to work. I mean, I understand you got to do what you got to do for work, but. And I understand you don't want your cops too close to your people, because what if they're friends with the criminals, right? But I don't know. I would just really, the protests that we said we weren't going to talk about, they're out there, yelling about no justice, no peace. What is justice? You're putting a guy behind bars? But they're mad about racism. How do you justice racism?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
That's the problem. Is I think like in this case, up to this point, justice has been served as much as it can be. I think, although I do believe that the other 3 officers should be arrested as accessories,
At least,
because none of them tried to do anything to stop
nothing at all.
So, I mean, but the man specifically was fired, arrested, and has charges being brought against him. So, I mean, there's justice there. But I think also, again, with a lot of like the people that are causing a lot of the problems with the protests, that was people that were paid to be there and cause problems, not there because they actually care about it.
Well, I want to take it a step further, because this is the God and Country podcast. You know, we God first, right? Bible first, Bible over the Constitution.
Yeah,
we love the Constitution, but we love the Word more. And where the Constitution can burn up, the Word will never go away. Jesus said that heaven and earth will pass away. Not one dot over an I or cross of a T will pass away from his own word. So let me ask you this, as people get angry and want to protest and stuff, and we'll get into this in a different episode when we talk about protesting and right to assembly and rights. You know, we covered it in another episode of rights, right?
Yeah.
But I want to talk about it specifically because of what's going on in current events. And what probably will happen more often, as this is an election year.
Yeah.
But, you know, where you get out there and you say no justice, no peace, or, you know, hands up, don't shoot, and I haven't watched a full, 20 minutes of the protest, so I probably don't know I know I'm not missing, I know I'm missing a lot of the current chants for this particular incident, but where is that in the Bible?
Yeah. Right here, Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God.
Right, but what is a peace? What is a peacemaker?
One who makes peace.
Right, but in this situation where you're going and protesting.
In this situation, I think. Well, to give you an example, I saw a video in, I think it was in the DC protest, where an Antifa member was breaking bricks off of the ground so that people can start throwing them through stores and throwing them at cops and stuff.
Right.
Well, some of the protesters that were actually, I'll basically, so this guy was a rioter, was Antifa, and was
a professional rioter.
Provocateur, yeah. And then there were actual protesters that were there for a purpose and wanted to peacefully express their opinions and things. Well, about 6 or 7 of these peaceful protesters grabbed this rioter.
Yeah, they put him on the ground.
Gave him to the cops.
Oh yeah, they put him on the ground and tackled him and stuff, and got him out of there.
I think that's a good example of that. That these guys, this guy was going to seek to cause harm and to
escalate things in a bad direction.
Yeah, and then people caught it, found him, and gave him to the cops. I think that's a great example, especially with how vilified cops are being right now, or going what they're going through right now with just a ton of people that don't really know. It's just a bunch of people that follow Sean King on Instagram and think he's like the know-all about all this stuff.
But he's be all end all.
He's a fake black guy. He's a white guy that he's like the male Rachel Dolezal.
Yep.
But people don't want to listen to that.
Oh no, he's actually catching some flack in this incident. I heard on the.
I hope so. God, I hope so. But 90% of the people that I follow are sharing videos that he's taking and all this kind of stuff. And all he's doing, he's a media provocateur. He wants to cause division between races because he makes money off of it. Mm-hmm. He's not actually seeking to help people about it and try and bring people together to say, hey, look, because I've seen one person that said something that is somewhat in support of the cop, and it was the lead singer for Trapped, and that guy's an idiot. So my friend,
he's headstrong.
My buddy just sent me a tweet that he posted, and what's funny is like a couple months ago, he got in back and forth with like these bands that I listen to about like numbers and stuff, and he brought up Pandora like that was a real thing, and
he said, back off, I'll take you on.
Yeah, dude, I'll take on anyone. But like, so he posted, and he's legit, out of the thousands of posts that I've seen, hundreds of people, tons of people I've seen talking about that, he is legitimately the only person I've seen that says something that's somewhat in support of the cop.
The particular cop.
Yes. Yeah. And even all the cops that were involved in this incident. And I was like, and my buddy sent that to me. I was like, that dude's an idiot. Like he's hardcore an idiot because but Sean King doesn't look at all the people that are saying, hey, this is wrong. Like, I'm a conservative. This is wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't support this police officer in this instant. And I'm 100% for bringing charges against this man because he murdered someone in cold blood, and that man did not deserve it. and it was wrong. It's wrong, and it's going to be wrong till I die.
I mean, as far as police, so on the podcast we do, what is it? Is it found in the Bible? And we have plenty of scriptures to talk about, like being governed, being good citizens, being good subjects, yada yada yada. I'm sure you can probably think of some, since this is like episode 12, episode 11 of the podcast, and you've been with us this whole time because you're a faithful listener. But we also talk about, like, what do we do about it? And I know that this might be a concept in some areas, but it's not all over. I mean, as far as policing, how can we start to change police brutality, address the wrongs of policing, and start to, move in the right direction? Me, because I want, the police abolished and all that stuff. But I think a step in the right direction would be for annual meetings where private citizens of any age, as long as, they're not babies crying, but they get in like a town hall meeting, and they just read all of the incident reports. They could just read all the incident reports for that particular police department that have been verified by, a third party or by a private, something.
Maybe there should be an audit.
There needs to be an audit, but like the private citizens need to see that, and then to have do this often and regularly, so that when citizens start to get a concept of, I need to protect myself. Yeah. The cops are there for you conceptually, but they're really there for the government. Yeah. They're not actually there for you.
Yeah. If they were there for you, they wouldn't have quotas.
If they were there for you, they wouldn't have quotas. If they were there for you, they would actually be there. Yeah. Be there for you. Instead of, processing, petty crimes and, like you said, getting quotas and stuff like that, it would look way, way different. And so I think a move in the right direction would be to push for, wherever you are, somehow get in touch with people and have like straight up PTA style meetings where private citizens can address the cops who have 2 or 3 incident reports on them and be like, you're still working here? Yeah. And then have the superiors, maybe not like the head guy, because I'm sure they're busy, but have an investigation panel from the department, and then the third party sitting there, and they can just straight up ask him, why is this guy still here? Yeah. Why is this chick still here? He did this. Why did he did this in another town? Why did y'all bring him here? Yeah. Just call him out. And I think that instead of, having some vitriol against people who wear badges, right, no matter their color of skin, it would be healthier to have vitriol against just straight up wrongdoing. Yeah, and that looks way different than what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what's been annoying me a lot about what these big name pastors and stuff are sharing, because they're sharing stuff about the race issue, which if you're a believer,
shouldn't matter.
Race doesn't matter because you're not a part of the human family. You've been translated into the kingdom of His dear Son. And you are now a beloved in Christ. You are not.
For anyone who's sitting out there looking at Daniel going, it's easy for you to say because you're white. No, it's easy for him to say because he has Jesus in him. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have Jesus in you, it's very hard to say.
And again, as I mentioned before, I didn't obviously wasn't murdered by a police officer, but right. I've had experiences where I was, abused. Power was abused over me by police officers.
Oh yeah, I got profiled by a police officer because I'm white and all my friends were of color, and we got into a fight in the street, and my neighbor called the cops, and I was the only one with a knife. Yeah. And they pointed at me. There were like 3 of them, and they were bigger than me. They were going to beat my butt. So of course I had my knife, because I was like, back off, dude. Yeah. But like, I called them friends. They weren't really friends. Anyway, the cop came to me and was like, hey man, it's going to be okay. I know he gave me the knife back because a scared little kid like me in a neighborhood like I was growing up in needed a knife, needed protection. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, racism doesn't exist. Yeah. I'm not saying that profiling doesn't exist. I'm not saying that anything like that. I'm just saying as believers, that cannot be our starting point. It just can't. It just can't.
Yeah. If believers are coming at this as a human issue or as a race issue, they're causing more division in the church than needs to. They're just causing more division straight up. I mean, in the church, out of the church, whatever. They're not talking about saying, hey, this guy, whether he knew Jesus or not, he was loved by God and he was murdered, and that's evil. And we need to talk about the evil and talk about the abuse of power.
Of murder and greed.
To me, the issue of being murdered by a police officer or being injured by a police officer, whatever, is more of a brutality or abuse of power issue than it is a race issue. Because, I mean, if I have them pulled up just to pull them up, but to get into statistics, if you do not know this, white people are murdered by police officers more than African Americans or Hispanics. Just as a heads up.
If you're going to look at it like race.
Yeah, if you're going to look at it by race. I mean,
I will put this out there. I know there was a study that contradicted this one that said that African Americans, males, were more likely to be accosted and then killed by police officers than white males, but they used a different time frame. They used a different measurement as far as numbers, like per capita, right? Mm-hmm. They used different numbers. And then, of course, they used white males, whereas this particular thing that he's referring to and most other people on the conservative side, it's just by race, death, and that's it.
Yeah,
and it's just the numbers. It's not likelihood or anything. So just putting that out there.
It's FBI statistics as well. I mean, that's
no. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm addressing that other study. It's true, but it's two things can be true at the same time. Yeah. Likelihood and what actually happens. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, like, and again, like Ethan mentioned, I'm not saying that race doesn't play an issue in these instances and profiling doesn't play an issue in these instances. But if we address the root of the problem, which is government power, control, these instances would not be as likely to occur, I think.
Or they would be responded to in a godly manner. Rioting is of the devil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, killing does not justify more crime.
Exactly. Thank you. Like, also, go ahead.
If you want to peacefully protest, 100% peacefully protest, I'm down for it. I mean, Thomas Jefferson and founding fathers did believe that if the government became too tyrannical, then it's the right of the people to overthrow that government. And I mean, I would we're there and we're not there. I think in this instance it's not there because it's one individual or a couple individuals that made a choice to do what they did, and someone unfortunately died from it. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like Trump was out there with his knee on his neck or something,
Right, and telling all the security officers to put their knees on other people's. It's not like I get what you're saying.
It's not a systemic thing. It was one instance with one guy, and there's multiple instances. There's a ton of instances we can get into with people of all races, which is why I think it's more of a power issue and a control issue than it is a race issue.
Even if it was a race issue, if you're a believer and you believe that Jesus is Lord and that there's a devil and he's at the kingdom of darkness, and in that darkness is strife and all this stuff, also a control issue. So the race issue goes back to control. But I do want to say this before we get too far down, closer to closing. You mentioned it's just about when you do that as a believer, you're sowing more division. That's ungodly. All of these big name pastors that we're thinking of that we're not calling out because we look up to them. We listen to their sermons on our own, and then we talk about them afterwards, even as friends, as believers. What they're doing when they don't follow through, they don't go all the way through what they're saying, they just leave it at some emotional thing. It's ungodly, because when you sow division, God is not a God of division. 1 Corinthians 14:39, I think. But God is not a God of division. So if you're sowing division, you're doing that from a different God. Mm-hmm. And it really bothers me when these preachers and even, lay people in the church that are just believers. But I mean, these big name preachers, they know that scripture. You can't tell me they don't know that scripture. And they think it's about denominationalism.
Some of them might not, man.
I mean, some of them might not. But I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with being honest, emotional, open, or transparent, or even upset. Yeah.
Being upset about this.
It's be angry and sin not.
Yeah.
So you can get mad, but where's that sin? And the Bible clearly lays it out. God is not a God of division. Mm-hmm. So if you start dividing, even with good intentions, that you're sinning now. You're missing the mark. So you're doing it wrong. But I just wanted to really put that out there, because as much as it bothers us, and we can say it bothers us, there's actually scripture. There's a reason why it bothers us. Mm-hmm. It's not because we're white and we don't understand. It's because we read the word, and that means more to us than the way that people look at us.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, I just, with this issue, with this instance that's going on, with all the problems that are going on in the country right now, I want to, just I believe God's peace over everybody, His protection over everybody. Please be willing to defend yourself and defend your family, but also but I think for the most part it can be done peacefully. There are people that are going around that are just trying to harm people and to protect yourself. But I think most of the people that are upset about this issue that want to protest about this want to do this.
They want to do it peacefully. They are seeking justice.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard to separate the issues, right? To separate the issue of George Floyd's murder and the protests that came after. It's extremely hard. But if we're going to approach it in a scriptural manner, we got to get to the heart of things. And I don't think that the riots are the heart of the matter. They don't get to the heart of the matter of what happened. And so, this episode we're talking about policing. We hope that you learned something. We hope that your thoughts were started. The gear started turning in your head, and maybe you came up with your own opinions. Maybe you want to argue with us. Whatever, hit us up. But next episode we're probably going to be talking about either a racism or just protesting in general. I mean. I don't think that me and Daniel agree on that one. So, and that's totally cool. That's why, we do what we do. Yeah. We just want to get the thoughts going. We want to have conversations, so come back for the next episode. I know that over the course of a week, as you know, things can change a lot. A lot of things can happen and, we'll be addressing that stuff. But, on God and Country podcast, we want to, talk about current events some, but we really want to zoom out and make sure that, as you go forward in life and as things happen, you can still apply the truths of the Bible and stuff like that. So that's why we try to share as much scripture as we can, or scriptural concepts, and kind of tell you where to find that. But hit us up on social media. I mean, do you have anything else to say?
I just as we mentioned, in other episodes, Romans 13 obviously is clear. There's scriptures in I believe it was Titus. Titus 3:1-2. 1 Peter 2:13-17. There's a ton of scriptures that talk about following and obeying the law. So as a believer, you need to follow the law, and I also believe you need to be in peace with those that are enforcing the law. You can't. You're not representing Christ properly when you're seeking to cause division. And again, I will keep reiterating this because I don't want any of my words to be taken out of context. I'm all for being upset about this issue. I'm upset about what happened to this man. I think some justice needs to be served. If you want to peacefully protest, I'm all for you doing that, but be aware of those around you that are not trying to peacefully protest and that they're trying to use this issue as a way to cause be an agent of chaos, basically.
Absolutely.
Stay in prayer, stay in the Word, seek peace about this whole issue. And
correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel. You said that there's nothing wrong with being upset about it. You're upset about it. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna take it a step further. You're upset about it, not as a racial thing.
No.
You're upset about it because of police brutality and the death of a civilian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Under the literal boot of the government.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. To me, again, it's reiterated. Me again, this stuff. I mean, I think race can play an issue in this.
Absolutely.
There's some cases where we could probably find that, but I think overall, as a more overarching issue, it's a police abuse or of power issue than it is a race issue.
And it would be foolish to ignore it. As even if you disagree on the whole racial thing and you think that that's the driving force 100%, the driving force to what? Police brutality. Someone acting out of turn, someone acting wrong and treating someone brutally and violently. So, just putting that out there, follow through,
Yeah. So that was just kind of my little thing.
Cool.
I want people to seek peace in what they're doing and be peace in what you're doing. Be the peace of God in this, because there are people that are hurting right now. I mean, this man's family is hurting. There's people who are losing their businesses that were on the verge of losing their businesses because of Rona stuff. Yeah. And then now their businesses are destroyed and they have no way to get back, and so these things that people are doing are causing more problems than are solving the problem that caused all this in the first place. Just be at peace, seek peace and be peace in this whole situation, and be comfort for people that need that, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are fearful, I guess rightfully, and just so be peace for those people, because everybody needs it right now.
Yeah, and know that things are going to get darker. So the days are going to get darker. So y'all need to be brighter. Y'all just keep digging in the Word and stuff. And definitely, if you want to have a conversation with us, if you have something to say, we want to hear it. Drop a comment in the comment section below on this YouTube video, or hit us up on social media at GNC Pod. That's on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can always find us at rsnwrd.com. Be sure to grab a shirt and support the podcast. And I guess we'll see y'all next time. Be safe, everybody. We're praying for you. We love you.